republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so we had some big meeting minutes here to review, and so we'll start with the regular board meeting that was January 30th, 2024. Any questions or comments or changes on that?
I can see.
No, looked good to me.
Okay. Motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting, the minutes of, what is that, January?
January 30th.
January 30th, okay.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, yeah.
There you
That's
go.
the regular meeting.
Yes, that was the regular meeting. And then the next meeting is the budget hearing number 1. Budget hearing number 1, meeting minutes, and they're 10 pages long, but it also includes all of the numbers from the budget, so it's very concise in
Good.
that way. Not concise in length, but anyway, any comments or questions on that?
No.
I will make a motion to approve the budget hearing number 1 meeting minutes from January 30th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For you. And then the last one is the February 6th budget hearing number 2, and that includes the couple of things that we had cleaned up from budget hearing number 1 and all the comments there.
Alright.
So any questions?
None.
Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the February 6th budget hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hank, any idea how many viewings we got of the budget hearings?
About 100.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Okay.
good. It's respectable.
Be able to phone it in then.
Yeah. Right.
No,
All right, so first on the agenda is the Historical Society, and Terry and Stephen, I see you're both here, so did you want to chat with us about the furnace?
Very good. First of all, I wanted just to tell the board that we're trying to be good stewards of your very fine old town hall,
Yeah.
a nice historic building. Basically what we're trying to do is get it out of harm's way. We've got a double-edged sword there with the Wildcat River on the west side and 16B on the east side. And as you probably all know by now, the December storm took out the furnace and some of the foundation on the west side from the river overflowing its banks. And we've had a chronic problem with 16B with stormwater infiltration that's damaged the foundation. And also because of the proximity to 16B, a lot of the siding has been damaged. No one's fault or blame because just whenever the snow is plowed in the winter. So basically we're trying to move the building back in the lot. And it looks like it's going to be a multi-year project
Right.
that might be done in different stages. But in doing so, not only are we trying to move the building back further in the lot, but we also feel that while we do this, we have a capital improvement plan, let's call it. And while we do this, we're going to create a handicap access. And we're going to try to bring water into the building, you know, with septic and toilets and all that. We're going to restore the windows of the building. And of course, finally, we're going to have to replace the heating system. And we're not sure what is the best option at this point, but that's part of the plan. This whole process is all about money, and we're not here to ask the town for money. But we just want to explain where we're at here. We're off and running trying to get an L-chip grant.
Right.
We've got a historic assessment of the building started and a qualified preservation plan being created to present to the L-ship people. The key to this whole thing for us is L-ship requires matching funds. So we're a little bit desperate for fundraising and for money, so every little bit helps. So our other plans besides L-chip are to do other grant applications like Moose Plate, the Goldberg Fund, and private fundraising for this overall project. The L-chip is key because they're the largest historic preservation funder available in the state. So we are really focusing in on that particular grant. Now, getting to the furnace and the insurance money, the town was reimbursed $52 plus $100 by Primex for the furnace, which was destroyed in December. And there's a possibility for another $2,500 in depreciated amount that's available if the town writes a letter to Primex by May 18th of this year, and that we replace the heating system within 2 years. So the potential there is for over $7,500, which is for us very substantial and quite important. The money that you folks have received from the insurance company, we would very much like to have that in our capital improvement fund as soon as possible, if agreed, because by fairly early in the process with L-chip, you have to show a potential to match funds. And so a fund has to be created so that when the grant is presented to the board, we're going to have to show that we have in fact raised money, and we would use that money initially in that fund to show our ability to match whatever grant they would be kind enough to give us. After that time, then we would take that money out of the fund and use it to replace the heating system, which obviously needs to be done, especially if any of you folks have been over there the last couple of months. It's really pretty uncomfortable if you're there for any lengthy period of time.
So, do you have any dollars yet on the cost to move the building, and is this?
Steven's going to give you that information in just a second. Okay. It's a great question. Yeah, we're not sure, but he's got a pretty good feel for it right now.
I'll bet.
So what have we done? We've met with 2 members of the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance and talked to them, and they've given us advice as to how to approach L-chip for grant money. And we've hired a gentleman through them named Jim Perkins, who initially creates the historic assessment of the building, and then he creates a qualified pension plan to present to L-chip, which would support our grant application. So what I'll do is I'll turn this over to Stephen, and he'll give you a little bit more background about what he's done and how close, and the work that's been done to get us closer to applying for this L-chip grant. And again, and for the second, and finally, that money that you guys have, that we would really appreciate, because it would make us look good, or look better when we apply for that grant. And if you could also help us out with Julie or someone to write that letter of intent by May 18th to Primex, stating that in fact we are going to replace the heating system, and then we would take it from there and provide invoices to them, and then they would reimburse that depreciated amount of about $2,500.
Okay.
So thank you, Stephen.
I have a long list of the people I've met with so far. They may not be in chronological order, but spoke and met with Scott Hayes about the where the water piping, town water piping sits relative to that property and how we might tie into that to supply the building. He provided me updated plans for that, and I've sent them to a septic design company that we're working with, Connecticut Valley Design out of Littleton, Mark Carbonell, I guess. He has a good relationship with Burr, and I believe they've been in touch. When Mike was in town starting our topography work on the land, it's a step we need to take right away so that we can really see how this can possibly work. We came into the town hall and looked in the records that were available, and it turns out Burr did a report on this whole concept in 2007. And he did quite a bit that will certainly be helpful to us. And he showed the building in two different locations. One downhill from where it is now, and also above where it is now, which we're leaning towards. But anyway, his work was helpful, and we'll put it to good use. Also met with Kevin Bennett on the site, discussing pros and cons of what we're trying to do, and he saw that it was a positive concept. He gave me the state engineer's name, James McMahon, out of Littleton. I met with him. He sees it as a positive. We would have to submit a plan with him, and if all the information's there, it's maybe a 2-week turnaround for that process. He did suggest that if it's in the upper location, because of the curve in the road, they might require a guardrail, and there might be other input that they have with the actual siting and landscape associated with it. Met with Fox and Son. They're the local choice of building moving. They're out of Lovell. I've worked with them for years. They took measurements, assessed the situation. They're not afraid of it. A lot of people have suggested that's going to be a difficult piece, and they are the key contractor in this process, but he's not afraid of it. And we have an initial estimate from him. I've also met with a site work contractor about preparing for the move in the location uphill where we're thinking about. I've talked with Donnie Gray from New Hampshire Electric Co-op. There are major power lines behind the building that we would have to deal with in the move. Worked with Julie to get a copy of the deed in order to get our work order set with them in order for him to come out to the site and move that along a little further. But we have some ballpark numbers at this point, but there are still a lot of unknowns, categories that we have to put on our running estimates to try to get an idea where it's going. But it's probably heading towards $500,000 of effort.
Have you spoken to the abutter that's at the top of the property?
I have not. Being out in minutes of public meetings, I've just kind of left it alone to.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
So I wanted to just I got a couple of questions about your grant writing process. How much is the match that they're asking for? Is it 100%, 50%?
100% match.
100% match. And it's a...
That's with the L-chip, is that consistent?
That's what I'm...
That's fairly consistent, but,
Okay.
but L-chip is the key because that's by far
Okay.
the greatest source,
Yeah.
potential source.
So 100% match, and I just understand the value of the heating system dollars going into a match account. You're gonna make that clear when you write the grant that that money's gonna be pulled out for the heating, that there'll be a set amount that'll be pulled out for the heating if you're pulling it away from your match.
We certainly can do that.
You, well, I think you'll
I think
have
you
to.
have to,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's a requirement of match is,
Yeah.
and just to throw it out there based on what I know about that stuff. And then a third question, I think I only had 3, so that's the good news. So I do remember in '07 when we looked at both of those locations, I think it was Dick Bennett's baby that he pushed that. And so why did you choose uphill as opposed to downhill? I remember at the time he favored the downhill, but I don't know why, and I'm just curious.
Well,
The
Might have been road.
wires.
prior to reading this report, there was just discussion of board members that remembered that Warren and maybe Dick DeValian had approached the town sometime earlier. Now, I don't know if that was separate from the 2007, but whoever remembered it thought, well, the town was not in favor of the downhill location. And I don't think at that time they took it any further to look into the uphill, but there was some resistance to the downhill. But in our recent discussions about it, the idea was that we're trying to protect it from
Yeah.
floodwaters. And the downhill location over time might just become problematic. And
Yeah.
and the uphill certainly is gaining a lot of points from a flooding standpoint.
And that's fair, and I was just
Yeah.
wondering about your thought process, and,
And also from 16B.
well,
It was set further away from the road.
yeah, I mean, that's a weird corner, and I can understand, and I mean, Jay will be the first one to tell you that there'll be a State Department of Transportation assessment and all of that stuff, but it's just one of the many things you'll go through, so I'm sure you'll all figure that out, but, there's no question about it, the building takes a beating where it is.
Yeah. And there's no problem with putting a septic in that, any of the locations there?
Well, Burr spoke to it in his 2007 report that it was likely that, the ingredients were there. And now Mike Carbonneau is springboarding off of what he said then, and he's done the topography. That's gonna tell him a lot about setbacks from the
Right.
river. But the soils seem to lend themselves. It's gravel being, that proximity to the river, so there should be plenty of drainage. But-
So as far as the insurance funds go, whether it be the $5,200 plus the $2,400, I think that there's 2 concerns. Number one, it is earmarked for the heating system, so it needs to remain earmarked for the heating system. If you put it in a capital fund, I don't know if that's going to be allowable, and we can certainly find that out. If it, like Bob said, when it comes to grant writing, you would have to disclose that, but whether or not it can sit in a general fund, I'm not sure. If it can, I don't see why we wouldn't have that transferred over to you, because it does have to be documented that it was replaced, or the money would have to be given back. And so that brings me to the question of, are you sure you can do this in 2 years? And that's...
You absolutely need a heating system in that building within the next 2 years.
Right, so if you don't move it, you would definitely,
Yeah,
Do it.
regardless of what happens, we'll have a heating
We're
system.
trying not to do something in the space it's in
Right.
and then just be in the way of the building.
Right.
So,
right,
we're trying to get a better sense of the building move before we make a move on the heating system.
agree, yeah, that's logical.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, you mentioned that this level outfit gave you a price for just the moving of the building?
Yeah.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
what does it cost to move a building like that in their
It's
estimate?
in the $80,000 to $100,000 piece right there.
Well, that seems pretty reasonable.
It does.
Now, that doesn't include getting all those wires moved and all
No,
that.
no,
But
those
still,
are the
but
pieces.
lifting that building and putting over 80,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting. So, any thoughts about at least the insurance proceeds as far as what we talked about then?
Yeah.
For the heating unit?
Yes.
just what I've expressed, that
Yep.
it's gonna be important that those funds are clearly explained, what they're for and what they need to be used for, and when they need to be used for that by. Are you thinking about going through next winter without a heating system if it doesn't move?
Well, to explain how we're even in the building right now, is there's a unit wall heater there. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Okay.
I think it was something Warren did, and we're glad he did. So we've been hobbling along with that. It's a monitored heating system, propane. So it takes the edge off.
Yeah.
And we've been, just
It's a lot of
making-
airspace.
Yeah.
So, but we found that, yeah, that's probably not gonna cut it for another winter. So again, we're trying not to do something that just
Sure.
fixes that problem versus money spent towards a bigger long-term
Yeah.
solution. So, hard to say.
Yeah.
I think then, there's a couple of things. I don't have a problem with turning over the funds as long as we say that they're stipulated for the heating system. When you write the grant, just pass that by us for approval and making sure the wordsmithing is correct. The other thing is, because this is a town-owned building, right? Do we have to have a warrant to move the building? Or
Never moved a
a
building
vote?
before.
I know. Well, we
I
built the
suppose.
library, but I,
Oh, that's right.
yeah. So that's my only thought on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have to check with the RA.
yeah, so we will check with DRA on that, and if that's the case, then, you know, that's a year from now, and that's unfortunate, but I think it's important, obviously, that we do it right.
Yeah.
So we will check on that, but I will make a motion to disperse the funds. Number one, disperse the $5,269.50 to the Historical Society with the stipulation that the funds will be consistently earmarked for replacement of the heating system. Do I hear a second?
Well, I'll second it. I wanted to have a bit of discussion on that. So it's like the funds that wouldn't physically move over into their account. They would just be identified on their grant, as I understand grants, that they're
Right.
available, and the town could write a letter of support identifying that with that understanding. That might be the best way to ensure that the grant reader is clear on that $5,200 or whatever it is and the intent that it's going to be used for. So that'd probably be in everybody's best interest that we write a letter of support for that. And when we talked about moving the old library, the reason that would have had to go before the town was the funding, and so at this point we don't need that. So you'll check with DRA and you'll know for sure. But I don't think this needs to go in front of the town legislative body at the annual meeting.
Right.
Is that your understanding, or?
Well, no, it makes sense. It's logical what you're saying, so it'd be helpful if it didn't have to.
Yeah.
Okay, so were we gonna continue on that motion and
I'm
move
ready to
forward?
vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number two is that the town will write a letter to Primex that they intend to apply for the $2,402.50 for the withheld depreciation, so we can recoup that money, and those funds will be treated the same, that they will sit in the same status as the $5,000 for the heating system, and if it's not replaced within 2 years for some odd reason, then it would have to be repaid.
And Primex is going to require invoices to
Yes.
verify the fact that we.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I will also make a motion in that the town will write a letter to Primex regarding the depreciation amount of $2,402.50 to be held in the same manner as the $5,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, was there a second?
Yep,
I
he
did, just
did.
Thanks.
Yes.
very quiet second.
Thank you.
Wandering mind over here.
All right, well, keep us posted, obviously, and then Julie, you'll check with DRA and see if that becomes, hopefully not a problem, and, yeah, keep us posted.
Okay.
We will.
Thanks
Thank you
for
very
all
much.
of the information and all the work you've been doing. Stay warm.
It's gonna be easy to
The
do.
weather's gonna be good.
Yeah. All right, the next item is the Muskoma Bridge loan. So normally, we just say, yes, we're gonna renew this, and the TAN cannot be used for the bridge project. It can only be used for maintenance and operations. So we haven't really had to use that ever, but we've renewed it in the past. And then the bridge loan matures on April 11th, 2024, which is $1,053,817. If we take the money out now for the bridge, the interest rate is 4.5%. If we don't take the money out and we ask for a new loan after April 11th, the interest rate goes up to 6%, so from 4.5 to 6. So if we take it out now, the interest rate stays level, and we can draw down on the loan and not get charged for the full amount. Or we could draw down on the loan and not get charged for the full amount, and we can also make principal payments, and there are no early payoff fees. So the other thing is, how fast are we gonna get paid for the proceeds, or for the reimbursements? And we don't yet know that because we just submitted, well, it's been a while now, so we haven't heard anything, right? February 8th we submitted for $949,000 for the first installment. So any thoughts on yes or no? Should we renew and take the money out at 4.5%, or do we just pray for proceeds and bank on 6%?
What does our administrator think? Have you given some thought on this?
I don't know, I really don't.
It would be nice if we knew when we were gonna get the funds,
Well,
and we would have
that's
an
the whole thing,
example.
right. And when will we start getting invoiced for the construction? It's, I don't know, I've never been through something like this.
Well, you said,
before,
what's the
so-
date, April 11th, is it?
April 11th,
We have-
yeah.
I mean, we do have the 500,000 in the expendable trust.
Mhm. Did we ask, or do we think it's worth it to ask, I'm blanking on his name, the GC of the whole job that was Stephen? Just to see what he thinks, or I don't know if he would have any opinion or not, but,
Yeah, what is do we have a timeline? I mean, that's not shovel ready, is it?
No.
So,
No.
it's not,
They're just gonna be cutting trees.
Yeah.
But the project needs to be done by November 15th
right.
of 2024?
of 2024.
Okay, well, then that's
So
my,
once it starts, it's gonna go quickly.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's what I was wondering, is this gonna just
yeah,
go
so,
through next winter before it's
I
done?
think DOT will be pretty good at getting the funds to us.
Yeah.
Right now, there's just a discrepancy in the amounts, so that kind of happened when I was on vacation,
Mhm.
so I'm waiting to hear from Stephen about that.
Okay. I don't even know what the difference is in
so-
what 2%
I was gonna say,
translates into.
1.5%, $1 million at 1.5% for 6 months, basically. So, and I can't do math in my head.
Kevin, what's the difference?
10,000, 15,000.
But I think that's basically what we're looking at is, Bill,
Okay.
do you have that number? Oh, just kidding. Call another. Somebody do the math. Can we table this until our next meeting?
When do you-
Until we find out if we get the money, or do we?
The next meeting?
We're not gonna meet again until the
March
26th of
26th.
March.
Right.
When do you need this?
April 11th is the
March 26th.
maturity date.
And then
Yeah,
listen,
that's-
No, I think,
think we should just be safe.
And renew, and draw down the money.
Yeah.
I know, it's,
In the overall scheme of things, $10,000, it's a lot of money, but I mean.
Yeah.
yeah, but I'll take every penny we can
I
save.
don't, yeah,
And the other thing is, are we sure about the 6% or could it be higher?
It could be higher.
Yeah,
she
so
said.
I think that's where we're also
Oh.
kind of hedging on that, that
Okay.
it's gonna be probably 6%. So, I would say, yeah, I would say that if we take the money out as close to April 11th as possible, seeing if we get money in, but I would take the money at the 4.5%.
okay,
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep.
yeah.
I will make a motion then to take the money out, not now, but as late as we have to, at the 4.5%, so we don't have a new loan written.
No later than April 10th.
Right.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. And if you get the money in, just email us. We'll do a happy dance. Fantastic. Okay. Chief Pearlie and Mike Mosier are not here today, but they submitted a policy that needs to be reviewed and signed if we agree to it. And it's a mobile data terminal use policy. So they're moving MDTs, they call them, mobile data terminals, into their cruisers so they can access confidential records, national law enforcement databases, etc. Right now, they don't have that ability. So the purpose and scope, policy, expectations, restricted access and use while driving, documentation activity, status changes, emergency activation, equipment considerations, and weather are all discussed in the mobile data terminal use policy. I've looked it over. I don't know if the chief sent it to all of us, I believe. So did you have any questions or comments on it? I think it looks
He seems to be
fine.
positive about it. A good thing to have.
Yep. And I think it's really interesting because in the past, they haven't been able to like run license plates or do things. They would have to call through dispatch to do that. And I think this gives them the ability to do pretty much everything electronically instead of by hand, so, or manually. So, motion to approve the mobile data terminal use policy.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. And I will sign, we'll sign. 220. Last page. I witnessed the demise of a really beautiful fox yesterday. A car ahead of me hit it. It came flying off the side of the road like it was being chased. And Chief Pearlie was nice enough to remove it from the road. But it's the first time he's dealt with a not live animal, I think. No, that's bad humor.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was very sad. I'm like, that is way too big to be a squirrel.
There's a lot of them on the sides of the road.
Yeah. Okay. Waterfront road flood damage. Emily and Kevin.
Yes.
Update? This is really regarding the property that is sometimes in Jackson and sometimes in Bartlett.
Right. Do you want to
Spring
say
Lanes thing.
something?
Just that I think they submitted some info to you, I believe.
Yeah, so
You forwarded to
Betsy forwarded a letter to me that
Fran Lyons.
had submitted to you all dated February 9th. He and woman Candace Chaplin had attended a Bartlett Select Board meeting to discuss the repetitive flood damage that he had talked to us about.
Mm-hmm.
They are, Bartlett posting details on the assistance available through the NRCS program through the USDA. So I sent this information, actually reached out to NRCS to learn a little bit more about this program. And Matt Brown is the state conservation engineer for them, sort of responsible for this area. And looking into this program, I've got a lot of questions for him. I can send you all the links that were sent to me. Essentially, there is funding available to deal with, offering technical and financial assistance to local communities to relieve imminent threats to life and property as a result of watersheds that have caused the damages. This particular grant program requires a sponsor, and the sponsor is usually a town or a tribal unit or something. And it's a 25% cost share that's required for that sponsor. And so this whole program came to my attention. I started thinking, okay, so there's private properties in Jackson when we think about Green Hill Road, the river going by that house right at the bottom. I've been in touch with the Conservation Commission when we're looking at the falls. But specific to this property, from what I understand, the river comes down Town Hall Road in Jackson, hits a rock, and then floods Bartlett. So my wonder on this is, why should Jackson be the sponsor if the damage is in Bartlett? Bartlett should be that sponsor. And if you look at rivers, we could blame...
Chatham.
Yeah. We could blame all kinds of things. Tommy could blame his location for sending the software.
Let's face it.
And so these are all these different questions I have for Matt. And the 25% cost share. So I'm kind of looking at multiple things here. I really would like to reach out to Bartlett to see a little bit more about their thought process. Is it, hey, it's your water and rock, provide a 25% cost share, and what that cost share entails. Can you use hazard mitigation plan funding? Here, Bob, what you were just speaking about the other grant thing is like, could we do in kind?
Yeah.
There's lots of questions. So I don't know if you have, you've got some pictures of them,
I
but
just have
nothing
a
beyond that.
quick comment, because I've met with Fran and one of the engineers from AGB and the gentleman from the state, I forget what his title was.
A gentleman from
The state, yeah, but he had something to do with, it wasn't DES.
Okay.
I have his card, but anyway, he
Okay.
was like, you can't touch anything out in that river. So if you look at the situation, it's almost common sense. Like if you had the biggest excavator, which you drop off the machine, go in there, you grab this rock, you pull it in, that takes care of the water going over, and then probably a couple loads of material, and it's done. But
we
like
can't.
I said, yeah, it's like, you can't touch that rock. Like, really? And it's, it's one of those things. It's just you're working with all these different agencies. And, if you don't do anything, like I said, there's 5 homes or 6 homes along the river there that the water runs behind and it goes back into the river.
What is the reason why why they won't allow anyone to move the rock? Because it's Mother Nature?
The state of New Hampshire has jurisdiction over the water that's in that river from...
But again, what is their reason? Just because that's written
and it's
by
not silly
them?
because there's 3 huge, there's a clay spill up the river. That river's always full of silt. Yeah. So it's like, it would be like a 1-hour thing.
I wonder if there's an appeal process on that.
Yeah.
The state guy said you can't do it.
Well, so this is where it's really interesting, and this is where actually I'm thinking now, I want to get somebody from Bartlett in on this meeting with that. It's a Zoom thing. We're meeting next on March 8th, next week. So maybe I'll reach out to them, and so they can hear this discussion. I do know you start moving one rock on a river, you can have all kinds of crazy impacts. Yeah,
right. You don't even know.
That neighborhood's saved, but the next neighborhood.
Well, that was my next question. Where's the water going to go once the rock
That's
is moved?
exactly it, and that's why you can't just go moving rocks around.
Right.
And the letter's a little bit on the vague side too, and there were some things that I would have liked to seeing a little bit more specific.
Well, and then it was interesting, I don't know if you scrolled down, including the notice
Yeah.
that the town of
Yeah.
Bartlett gave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Town of Bartlett, Town of Bartlett,
Exactly,
homes in Bartlett.
Right.
exactly.
It's right there on their
So that's
notice.
where it's like, there might be, help to assist private property owners. The program does require a 25% match on behalf of the property owner. I believe that's incorrect.
It's the town, not the
It's
property
the
owner.
town.
So my
So-
other question would be too then, if you can't remove a rock, is there anything that they can do to, like you said, mitigate further damage by building up?
Well, so this is
Something-
where they have, so Matt, they send, the sponsor, the
Yeah.
town, submits a letter.
Okay,
And then they send, and nothing can be done until that's sent in. Then they send out their people to assess the damage.
okay,
You have 60 days from the event, or 60 days from when you can access the issue,
Okay.
which is what we're dealing with. We're
Yeah.
kind of waiting for, which is happening
melt.
pretty quick,
yeah,
to be able to access these different things. And that piece, I just don't think that there's, they have to assess it. Now for here, now with my firmly Jackson hat on, thinking like, we've had so many assessments done on these properties that we've all submitted to FEMA. I was saying, Matt, we've got all of this.
Yeah.
Can we send you the work that's been done? And so we'll see about that. I don't know how much assessment, they should have that ready. It sounded like you visited, with the state. I mean, the state, between the state and FEMA, there's been a lot of eyes on these different things.
right.
And so when you kind of declare the 60 days, when the time starts ticking, that would be the big thing.
Well, I kind of agree that the flooding happens in Bartlett. Seems logical that Bartlett would be the sponsoring town, so,
So I think for next steps, I'll contact Bartlett folks, see who wants to join me on this meeting with Matt. And then, in the meantime, I have been in touch with the property owner on Green Hill and with the Conservation Commission about their particular issues.
okay,
I'm gonna get more of a sense on what the 25% share is for the town, how
Right.
that works. But none of this hinges on a federal disaster declaration.
and when are we gonna find out that?
So
No.
that's the other thing.
Yeah,
The latest I heard on call a couple weeks ago was that the state was actually getting their information in earlier. They had a March 16th deadline. They were going to submit it by the end of the month, this month. And hopefully we're going to find out at the beginning of March.
okay,
Because if the declaration goes through, then we have to see what, what is the different sources of funding. And it doesn't necessarily mean that these private property owners are going to get funding,
right,
because there's different levels of that disaster relief that's possible, so we'll find out all that. But this process can kind of move along, we'll see, so. So I can just be in touch with Julie and Betsy and kind of keep
Yeah.
posted on what's going on, but.
yeah, and if you need any of us for,
Yeah.
to join in on the meeting or anything with the
Yeah,
select
we'll
board
see.
there.
There's a lot of questions I have, and I want to bring
Yeah.
Bartlett in tight on this,
Yeah.
because
Sounds
we're
good.
flooding, so we've got flooding.
Well, hurry up and wait,
One of those concerns is the liability issue,
yeah,
Yeah, well,
Even if we are allowed to touch the rock,
right.
what does that mean for the next flooding event?
Well, and so
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
there's
where.
a lot there.
Yeah, and so along those lines, NRC, they do all the planning
Yeah.
and what work would need to be done, so they would, their engineers and their river people would be dealing with all of that. Who actually does the work? Yeah.
I mean, it just seems clear it needs to be initiated by the town of Bartlett.
Yes, certainly, the sponsor letter, that has to come from them. I mean, nothing can happen before that
Right.
letter is
Yeah.
sent in. And
Right,
So, unless I'm missing something.
yeah.
seems pretty obvious, yeah.
Happy to play a supportive role. whatever we can do.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that update.
Yep.
All right, Jerry, you have some information you want to share with us for town meeting.
Yes, the first page is sort of
It's in there?
a
You have
TikTok
your-
kind of, and I don't mean TikTok social media, I mean, it's basically how I'll approach the beginning of the meeting.
Mhm.
Do you have any questions about that?
Well, it's one thing, did you hear about the God Bless America?
Yeah, I do have a question about God Bless America being led by Chief Pearlie, who is a musical guy, but not to be insulting to Judy Botsford, but she's always sort of been the first tone
I
of
thought about
that.
that, but
and,
I can do that.
I think it would be respectful, personally, just my opinion. So, like I said, I'll leave it up to you, but I just think that it's very personal to her, probably.
We'll do that then.
Yeah.
And I bet Chief Pearlie won't have his feelings hurt
That
either.
was who my first thought was. And then
Yeah,
I remember seeing them
Yeah.
at the voting primary,
Yeah.
and I thought,
yeah,
And so I thought it might be, but I'll ask them if they want
Okay.
to do that.
I'm sure.
yeah.
That's great.
Okay.
And then the
And
second thing is the invocation. Any questions about that?
I'm sorry.
Who is going to do the invocation?
I was.
Okay. Don't have a problem with that. Are you, like I know in the past, Gail, doctor, has declined to say anything religious,
And
obviously,
she missed
because
the
of
meeting last
separation.
year, so
Yeah,
and maybe next year, we can give her enough heads up that she would have a plan to come. Last year, Chief Pearlie did.
I think her argument also is separation of church and state and having that spoken at a government type of gathering,
Yeah.
so.
And there's a small technicality that, well, not technicality, it's a law, that only people from the community can speak. Now, I'm going to ask for a friendly motion that the town attorney and the administrator, the road agent are all not residents of Jackson, but I'm hoping that they'll be able to speak as well. So we'll have to have a sort of a friendly motion on that.
Good.
I don't think that's ever been a problem in the past, right?
I mean,
So we've done it.
So-
It's done.
I could rule independently that they would be allowed to speak, but that would be like everything that I would rule could be overruled by the town. So if we did a motion, then it wouldn't be overruled.
Good, because obviously Gary Allen being our road agent, we may
Yeah.
want him to say something about the
Right.
sand shed.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's
Yeah.
things that happen.
Right,
Town attorney.
Agreed.
Or our administrator.
yeah.
comes
And are
from
we
another
making that
town.
motion now or at the town meeting?
Yeah, we might make.
I mean,
I know Julie did not.
as I said, I could by my own ruling say that, but then like all my rulings, they could be overruled by the legislative body.
Mm-hmm,
In fact, I'm gonna, as you can see, that's one of the things I'm gonna talk about. So if I ask for what I'll call a friendly motion, that people that are not residents of the town would be able to speak to specific issues.
mm-hmm.
I think there's a petitioner who's asking for something that's not from Jackson. I'm not sure he's from Jackson, it might be. But certainly the chief and the road agent and the administration are not. And so they would have to be approved by the motion.
I think we agree on that part. Are you asking us to make a motion now to allow that at
No,
town
I
meeting or
can't, I
at
can't
town?
do that.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
This is going to happen
I'm
at town
I'm
meeting.
suggesting there's two
Got it.
ways I could do it.
No, I think that
I do it by motion,
friendly motion,
yes.
yes. Agreed?
Yeah.
You understand the difference?
I think there's a
Yes.
big difference between staff and just someone visiting from another town too.
Right.
So I think there's, I'm not sure if there should be precedence, and if there is precedence, should we be doing it differently? Go ahead.
Just an observation, I do like the idea if it's staff, and make sure you use that word. A number of years ago, I had to do the minutes for a town meeting, and there was a gentleman in the room having a very long, heated discussion regarding the police department. There was no identification, no name, this gentleman never reappeared, and as far as I know, he's not our resident or property owner.
Mhm.
So, you know, if we had someone there where it was very heated regarding police fire, don't recall what the subject was, but I wanted to just give you that information.
Yeah, huge difference
Yeah.
Mhm.
between staff and non-staff
Yeah.
when you're talking about what town do they live in.
So we'll do it by motion rather than edict.
I think that's smart thoughts.
That's the way I prefer to do it.
Bill?
Just one comment, again, to your point, please, if there are non-resident property owners in the room, will that then allow those folks to be able to speak, or are you gonna make sure you keep it to a?
Yeah, I think, you know, Bob, you mentioned staff, there, for the, whatever the money raised for out-of-town groups, we from time to time have had those people sponsor and speak to it. They're not residents, nor are they officials of town, or employees of town. And I think that if and I don't have the list in front of me of who they are, what those,
For the social services,
Exactly.
for example?
no, so if someone is here from one of those social services
Mhm.
and wants to speak to it,
Mhm.
I think we've always asked that they speak to it.
Right,
That's not a new precedent,
yeah,
for sure, because that's always happened,
right.
Yeah.
so.
Also, I will be meeting with Greg Marcello at the Whitney Center on March 7th to go over how the microphones are, because they have an all-new system there.
Right, and
So-
I was gonna do that as well.
Yeah.
And regarding that, in other words, if you look at the rules of procedure,
Mhm.
if you stop at hand holding voting cards, that's the only part I'm gonna speak to. The rest of the part is sort of what I'm gonna refer to as non-friendly information.
Mhm.
And sort of, it's included because both the municipal association and the state recommends these things.
Mhm.
But they're also dealing with towns like Manchester, and, you know,
Right.
where they have to have microphones. But we've never required that someone from the group, the legislative body, would have to speak at a microphone. There may be someone who isn't able to get up and speak at a microphone. And the idea of handing a microphone through the crowd is really not a good one, because
Right.
as you pass it on, who knows what someone's going to say. So I'm not going to enforce that when someone raises their hand and wants to speak, that they have to speak to the microphone. And that's why I say that ending with by show of hands holding voting cards, that's the only, when I talk about the instructions of the crowd, that's where I'm going to stop.
Mhm.
Everything else is sort of just meeting requirements.
I really would like it if people would come up to the microphone, now that we have better equipment, and it makes it easier for minutes and for everyone to hear that, because when we do pass the microphones around, it can be, well, there's germs, number one, but also, like you said, there's just a lot of things that can happen. I think if we do have the ability for someone to come to the
way I was going to
microphone.
deal with that part was I was going to have a microphone set in the middle aisle.
Right,
And that if someone wants to come and speak to it, they can, but I don't want to require it. I mean,
Can I speak?
the only thing I think I would enforce is the time limit.
yeah,
Now, due to the First Amendment, I can't control what they say.
right.
I would ask that they would speak to the article and not be repetitive.
Mhm.
But First Amendment rights
Mhm.
require that someone wants to show up in a Superman outfit with the letter T on it
Mhm.
and speak about something completely you
Right.
know, I can't limit that.
Can we go back to the,
Yeah,
back to
back to
the
the-
microphone?
So, if you go to a Conway Planning Board meeting, it's in a room this size, they always speak to the microphone. And it's very common in most every other town meeting in this area. And it's not only to just capture minutes, but if I'm in the front row speaking, my outside voice may not be adequate for the people in the back of the room to hear. So there's an acoustics issue there, and there's a fairness issue that if somebody's speaking, people have a right to hear that person. And so you go down to our state legislative body, and that's how people make comments, is they line up at the microphone and they take their turn. And I see it as a very helpful way for us to support the order that we want for that annual meeting.
The way that the state recommends it is that there be a microphone somewhere in the group, and that they would form a line if they want to speak.
Right.
Now, there may not be people who can get up,
But I
and
think,
I also think that it would be somewhat limiting. In other words, someone said, would jump out, for example.
That would be a hypothetical
Okay.
situation, Jerry, that would be easy enough for us to deal
Yeah.
with. If we have somebody that's handicapped and can't get to the microphone, I think that's when and if that time ever happens, I think that's easy enough to deal with. The overwhelming majority of the people that come to the meeting can ambulate to a microphone and share their thoughts and comments, and it's a way for everybody to be involved in a discussion.
the other thing I think is very important is the biggest complaint or negative comment that I've heard about any meetings in the Whitney Center are the sound and the lack of good sound for folks that are hearing impaired or anyone in general. And I think that being at the microphone is really important, and I would like to have that as a requirement, that if you are able to get up and walk to the microphone, you make your comments there. I think it's also easier for you to control that 5 minutes instead of having to grab a microphone out of someone's hand. But also, if we do have the ability to give a microphone to someone that, like Bob said, is an ambulatory and able to get there, then we would have that option. But I have a feeling it's going to be an animated meeting. We're going to have a lot of people that want to speak, and I would like to have that order. And the fact that we have a new system that's supposed to be so much better and greater for people to hear, I would really love to have that order. Karen?
Just a question, it's a recommendation. Do we know if the new system is going to have one microphone, or is there a possibility to have one on each side and leave the center open so we can see the full discussion going on?
I'm going to find that out. I know they have more than one microphone because that was part of their system that they purchased, and they're having multiple microphones. They're also going to have headsets for speakers and things like that. So it's much, much more sophisticated than it has been in the past. The other thing is I want to make sure that Jay is consulted, because I know that he has making sure that aisleways and things are appropriate. So we'll ask his opinion as far as setup, and Jerry, obviously your opinion too of where you want to be standing versus the select table, etc. So I think there are a few different considerations, and that will be decided based on what equipment they have and that. But I agree, 2 microphones could be better than one especially if we have a lot of people, and just maintaining order.
I have seen it where they have on both sides, and they have 5 minutes here, and the mic gets dropped because they have that ability, and it goes to the next person on the other side of the room, and it gives people time to move. By keeping that center open, that is an emergency exit, along with the fact that we can also use the side entrances.
Right. So
if we line up in the middle,
yeah,
no one's getting out that back
right.
row.
So those logistics, I think that we'll make sure happen way before the day of the meeting. And
Well, again, the reason I'm here is that I just wanted to get some viewpoints. In the end, it's still my decision as to how it goes by RSA.
Could I give a viewpoint? I agree with everything you guys have said, and everything that's happened here, but I'm thinking of shy people who don't like to get up.
Exactly.
And it might stop them from actually making a comment. There are people like that. I happen to be one of those. I want to sit in my chair. I don't want to get up in front of everybody. And there's a lot of folks that do that. So I'm just throwing that out there, because Jerry might run into someone and say, do I have to get up there? Because I
The good news for you guys is you're going to have a microphone.
We'll be there, yeah. Yeah, and you're going to make sure that I don't swing.
Because
exactly. Karen?
Just because I've done the minutes in the past, past where you'd have to be incredibly accurate, you have to clearly, I understand if someone's shy and they're soft-spoken, but they're still gonna need to have a microphone brought to them at least if they don't wanna get up in the middle, because everything they
Okay.
say is important, it has to be documented. And if it's not documented, there's no proof it happened.
Right.
If you can't hear it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and we can, you know, come up with different scenarios of different people and their wants and needs and things, but I think, if we can serve the majority here of making sure that the meeting is orderly, that people can say what they want to say, like you said, that they have a time limit, if that is respected, that they're addressing the actual motion or the article that's on the floor at the time. I
How do you
think
feel
that's
about the
important.
5 minutes?
Yes. I would say 2 minutes, but that's my opinion. I think 5 minutes is a long time.
I think if you need more than 2 or 3 minutes to express yourself, then that means you're probably not as prepared as the legislative body would like you to be. And I think that also, I will say that the purpose for speaking is to be heard in that meeting and in every meeting. Nobody wants to speak and not have people who can't hear them, whether they're shy or outgoing or whatever. And so that microphone not being available can disenfranchise somebody from expressing their views in the room.
Well, Jerry, you can strongly encourage, we want you to use the microphone for all the reasons we gave you. Just go a quick synopsis.
And that's
And
how
I think,
that's sort of the feeling I have, is that I'm going to encourage, say there's a microphone here, feel comfortable speaking at it, but if for some reason you don't want to, and you can make your voice, I'm thinking, like Peter Benson, for example, doesn't need a microphone to be heard in the entire room. Sarah Clemens may. So that I don't think I will.
And at that point too,
Absolutely.
if you want to speak and you're in line to speak, then there's a nice orderly progression of who's the next speaker
That's how the state
is.
looks at it.
Right.
Now, do you think that in terms of, it's been a long night.
That's how a lot of towns look
Do
at
you
it
think
too.
that it's appropriate then to say, if you want to speak, get in line, and then I will recognize you as you come to the microphone?
Yes.
Because they can't speak unless I recognize them.
That's correct. I would definitely recommend that. If someone raises their hand and for some reason they are not able to make it to the microphone, you could recognize them at that time. But I think that they walk to the microphone, they're recognized, they state their name, important for the minutes, like we said. If we question their residency at all, I don't know if we should have them state Jackson resident or
Well,
Jackson property owner.
I haven't explained that fully yet. The checklist people are going to be there and verify that they are
When they get the
registered
card.
voters. And they're going to be given a card. And I'm going to say, all in favor of, all opposed.
But if someone wants to get up and speak,
Right.
but they are not a card holder, but they are a property owner, are they still going to be allowed to speak? And I think that's going backwards a little bit, but they should be allowed to speak as taxpayers and not necessarily voters.
And that goes to my concept of
It's the motion, right?
authorized. Now, in terms of limiting to, and I'm going to say 5 minutes because I just know that there's some people that, and I know that at last meeting I cut someone off because they were getting too long and be repetitive, and it was reported to me that their hair was on fire because I had cut into the thing. So I think 5 minutes is more than enough time for them to state their positions, or whatever it is they want to state. And I guess that if they begin to come, if they go over the 5 minutes, then I just have to say,
you're done.
I'm going to have to ask you to cut it off.
Okay,
You all right with that?
sounds
Any comment?
good.
Okay, now on the.
How are you going to keep time?
The way
Yeah,
that,
Jerry, how are you going to keep time? Just, sorry to interrupt. Kathleen's gonna be.
yeah, that could be one way.
Yeah.
It ain't
But I
time.
will,
Yeah.
Egg timer, yeah.
If I can find one for 5 minutes. I'm going to read the article as it is written.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to the operating budget, I'm going to read the article the way it is written. And as you can see, I'm going to, upon being seconded and moved, I'm going to recognize a person, generally a select person, to speak on that article. So if any part of I know you had asked me to read the complete operating budget. I'm not going to do that.
No, I didn't ask you that.
No, we didn't. We asked to read each section.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read the article, the warrants, the way they're written. And then because I didn't produce the operating budget, you all did. And so I'm going to recognize you after it's moved and seconded to speak to each article. And maybe answer any questions that would pop up about something.
And then would it be inappropriate at that time for us to read each of the sections as a select board?
That's the way I've always seen it
Yeah.
done, with the exception of last year. And we dealt with a lot of complaints about it,
Right.
so.
I mean, it's entirely up to you. You produced it, but you might say, police department, X dollars. Any questions?
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have,
I would like to do
we
that.
have all of what's in there and we can
Right.
explain it.
Exactly.
So I think that works out okay.
Okay.
You know, do you think?
That's how it was always
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
We would go through there by
Yeah.
departments.
Right.
and
Yeah.
give Anybody who had a question or a concern to express about each department, and then we would go through them, and then
Right.
we would entertain a final vote.
Okay, then we'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And you're okay with the concept of the checklist, people handing out a card, that they would, instead of saying yay, nay,
Yeah, I think cards are a
All in
wonderful
favor?
thing. I
all
haven't,
opposed?
right,
Now, if, I'm going to probably designate 3 or 4 people, if it's close, to count them. And then they would report to me that this either carried or didn't carry. And then if you look at the very last thing, I have the right to vote on every article. I'm only going to break a tie, if there's a tie, or to create a tie if it's a motion, if it's an article that I oppose.
Talk to me about the secret ballot then. Any 5 voters may require the vote to be by secret ballot, and all 5 voters must be present, stand, and be identified, and the request must be presented in writing to the moderator at the end of the debate on the
And
article in question.
That's right out of the
Right.
municipal association. To me, that's a little unfriendly.
So, for example, like on the transfer station warrant article,
Right.
if someone wants to have a written vote, a written
A
ballot,
secret
or a
ballot.
secret ballot on that, what would they need to do that?
Okay, what they would need, generally, what has happened in the past, when someone wants to have a secret ballot, they come up before the meeting and say,
Right.
we'd like to have a secret ballot. I'm gonna say, fine, bring it up when the motion is read and discussed. And have your 5 people. Now, what the state recommend, and the municipal association recommend, is that the 5 people stand up, identify themselves, and say where they live. That, to me, is a little, not organic, if you will. So if someone comes to me before the meeting, says, I'd like to have
Secret
the
ballot.
transfer station on secret ballot, then I'm gonna say, okay, the time to do that, and thank you for noticing me, the time to do that is following the discussion on that, and then you can make a point of order that you'd like to have a secret ballot, and present, your paper with the 5 people. I'll ask if the 5 people were present, and then we'll go to secret ballot. And I'll ask the administrator to produce X number of slips that say yes, no, and they just tear it off and put it in the box.
Okay. Karen?
When we had the preschool vote, just as an information, there was many people asking for a secret ballot. Because so many came to our office, and informed us of it. I did relay that
Ready.
information to Bill Kelly, who he then realized, yes, that's an issue. And so at the start of it, he was planning on it. They could have written something, they still had to acknowledge 5 people.
Right.
However, we were already prepared because they told us in advance, we want this. So that's a great way for, we might have 3 of them at this election. We have to be prepared for this
Correct.
meeting.
I would definitely be prepared for
Yeah.
secret
At least
ballots,
one.
at least one.
And they should do it in advance. They
Yeah.
don't have to wait till that night, so Gary will already know, you know, either all 3 or.
And then we'll go through the formality of it at the meeting. But
Now, let's take one of the 250,000, right? Probably the people who would want to have a secret ballot are the people who would be against it. Because they would say, gee, if I raise my hand, then is my house fire going to be taken care of? I mean, who knows
Yeah.
what would be
what
going
goes
through
through
their
people's
heads.
heads, yeah.
But if, after the discussion of that, it's clear that it's either not going to carry or is going to carry, would it be appropriate to say, do you still want to have a secret ballot?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I would think so, but because that person has to come forward and request the secret ballot, we know who they are, then it would be appropriate to ask them. If it were secret that they requested it, then you don't want to out them at the meeting. That, to me, wouldn't be appropriate.
Just
But
for example, like, let's say it's after following the discussions, we say, we'd like to have a secret ballot, okay, here's your 5 people. And the crowd goes, oh, is that an indication that the legislative
No.
body doesn't want to have a vote? Secret.
I don't see that as a reason not to have a secret ballot.
Yeah.
I think it means that people don't want to miss their show at 7 o'clock.
But I've heard that moaning and
I don't know.
groaning
I
before in
have
the past.
too, because
I
it's a
mean,
formality
people
and
say, oh my God, another half an hour for
Yeah.
the meeting or
And
whatever
so
they're
that
thinking,
doesn't
you know, I
cast
get
a
it.
vote in my
But
opinion. I don't know.
I think these are important issues.
Anybody that wants a secret ballot can go through the motions and get it
Yeah.
for whatever their reasons are. I mean, that, it's the
Yeah.
legislative body out there, it's not our meeting,
Right.
it's the legislative body that forms, and so.
To that
For
point,
somebody, sorry, for somebody to want to stand up and
Mhm.
request a secret ballot, then, I mean, that's what our ears are always listening for.
Mhm.
It's not something that needs to be instigated by this body or any other individual. If somebody wants a secret ballot, they will stand up and exercise those rights, and we'll be ready for it. It could be, we could have somebody requesting a secret ballot on every single
Anything.
warrant,
Mhm.
for all we know. And that's always something we should be prepared for, but not asking, okay, does anybody want a secret ballot for this warrant article?
Mhm.
I believe while the voting happens, people are allowed to go on to the next subject.
yes.
Because we've already discussed it, now we're voting. So
When the
while we're-
polls are open, they're open
Polls is
for an
open, the
hour.
conversation, you can go
Right.
to the next amendment, or article and discuss that while we're all voting on paper.
Correct, yeah,
Right,
that's how it worked in the past.
Mhm.
They have to
Okay.
remain open for an hour.
right,
That's what she just said.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
yeah,
Yeah, we're,
all right.
all right.
What else?
Any other questions at all? Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
the
this.
prep, and then you and I will touch base as far as microphone setup, et cetera, and make sure we're on the same page there.
Yeah, it's, I've already asked the school board to identify the person who's gonna do it with us, so I don't know how it's gonna happen, but it'll happen. For the
To-
microphones.
Oh, right.
To teach you how to use them.
Yeah, I think Greg is gonna be that guy, because he was pretty much the lead guy on the purchasing of the equipment and stuff, and I think Hank was also consulted on some of the equipment too, so that's good. All right.
Do you have any questions on the voting works equipment?
No, I think, we're leaving it pretty much in your hands, and we made the motion and said, let's go for it, so I think that knowing that it's gonna be available is great.
To Karen's credit, she's already gone through, Frank was there when we went through it once.
Mhm.
Karen's been through it several more times. She's gonna do it one more time complete, which I'm going to do with her. But she deserves a lot of credit for all the work she's already done on it.
Yeah, we're excited for it. It's good progress for you guys.
Yeah. for the town.
It'll save a lot of time at night.
But
Yay.
I think
Yeah,
between,
no doubt.
the building works equipment and the pole pad equipment, that it's gonna be a lot smoother.
Good. Good to hear. Well, thanks for that. We appreciate it.
We do have full pad training tomorrow.
It was pretty smooth in the last primer. My God, we were half an hour when we were done. I've never seen it go that fast.
Nice.
Accounting.
All right. At one of the last meetings, it might have been the last meeting, we noticed that we need folks to step onto the ZBA, and Jim Wasco has expressed interest. So I will make a motion to appoint Jim, unless anybody has discussion, but I'd like to make a motion to,
I gotta get back to work.
thanks, Jerry. Make a motion to appoint Jim Wasco to the ZBA.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Jim is already part of the planning board as well.
Yeah.
So he's the one guy that can be on both, right? There you go. Thank you. All right, favorite folder. We have 4 new short-term rental permits. The first one is Vanderburg, map R14, lot 06-C on 18 Dinsmore Road.
That's a driveway permit.
Oh,
There was a violation.
sorry,
Stuff.
you're right. I skipped a section and went all the
Used
way
to do
down.
that all the time.
Okay. Glasses, please. Let's go back up where it belongs. Crandall, 13 Tyrolean Drive, map V10, lot 234, with some zeros in there. So this is 3-bedroom building permit and septic, and their advertisement is for 3-bedroom as well, and they have a limit of 30 rentals. So do I hear a motion to approve?
Before I make a motion, I just wanted to question, it seemed like you thought that they were advertising 4 bedrooms.
Yeah, they corrected the advertisement.
Okay.
They just were showing several
Got it.
bedrooms in their advertisement, but they did correct it,
Okay,
so.
thanks. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Aye. Alright, the second one is Kelly at 55 Juniper Way, map V8, lot 51. And it says there may, Kevin, do you have a comment on this one?
I think they should just advertise for 3, I believe, because we went round and round on this one with, at one point, the house was 4 bedrooms. but
Yeah.
The permits that they had, they did a lot more work than they were supposed to, and then there was no septic design on file, but they had a septic inspector come, and he basically asked what number you want me to put on it. That's what I heard. So anyway, legally, it's definitely a 3.
And they have 4 bedrooms advertised, so they need to, have they been asked to change it yet?
No, not yet.
No? Okay, so we won't be approving that one tonight. They will be asked to change their advertisement to 3 bedrooms instead of 4, sleeps 6, 8 maximum, and then once we get that, they will be approved for 30 limits. The next one is Park on 95B Dinsmore Road, map 14, lot 5. And that is actually a new owner of a previously approved short-term rental. So we're approving it. They have no limit because there was no limit on it previously. It's a 2-bedroom, and this really changes the property owner and identify the contact. So, motion to approve 95B Dinsmore Road.
I'll make that motion to approve 95 Dinsmore Road, STR map 14, lot 5.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
27. And then our
And
last.
Kevin, just to clarify
Sorry.
this one, it's grandfathered because it was previously
Yeah,
approved.
that is, yeah.
Okay.
As long as they didn't change anything, right. And then the last one is Rodriguez on 9 Pinkham, map R08, lot 6. it's a 5-bedroom, 5-bath tax card, but they're advertising 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, so less than that. So it is okay to approve with a limit of 30 rentals. And
Clarification is do we know what the septic is approved for?
there's nothing on the
We don't.
building.
It's a great big house, I've worked on it, I don't think there's any issue there at all.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
forget what's on file, but,
It says no building permit, no septic on file,
yeah, I
but,
think they had 5
Yeah,
bedrooms
so you go by the
already.
tax card,
mm,
Yeah,
and
Okay.
they're only advertising.
It's not on file.
it's for
Good
sale
soul.
too, I think. It's,
Yeah, it is.
he's trying to sell the place.
yeah. I will make a motion to approve Rodriguez 9 Pinkham, map R08, lot 6.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then the last under short-term rentals is a property that was discovered on Airbnb that does not have a conditional use permit. So this is at 52 North Hampshire Ridge Road, and they're operating a short-term rental without a conditional use permit. So I will make a motion to send a violation warning number 1 to the owner at 52 North Hampshire Ridge Road.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any particulars on that one? How long have they been operating an STR without a
Well,
permit?
It's a new owner.
bought the property in December,
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay.
and it was the butter that sent me the
oh, yeah, but-
link.
Thank you.
okay.
Butters will do that.
Good neighbors.
Yes. All right, now to the driveway permits and building permits. Anything on there, Kevin, that we need to know?
Nothing there, but good news is that they're working on the driveway at Eagle Mountain House.
I saw
Yeah.
So
that.
they've
Awesome.
done a lot of work already.
Yes, it looks really,
Yeah.
it looks nice, but it also looks like they're really building it
Yeah,
up.
it's gonna work.
Didn't I read too, there's no violations? There was something that the
Yeah.
state came back and said there were no violations as to what they were doing. Everything was cleared up, as far as the
Yeah,
state was
they'll
concerned.
everything too.
which is pretty cool.
On the design, right, so.
That's good.
And I know Gary's not here, but did we have any follow-up with that house that's on Thornhill
Thornhill.
Road? Because I've driven up there a couple times since and
Oh,
noticed
different
that there was
driveway.
no ice
Oh, yeah.
flow. So,
I think there'll still be an ice flow. We haven't done anything there yet. I think it's
Interesting.
the
I actually
spring.
fixed a lot of it the one day,
And he
just with
did,
the
yeah.
shovel.
yeah,
Right.
But there's a lot of groundwater there, and there's two entrances that come out on Thornhill Road.
Right.
And it's pitched the wrong way,
got you.
so I think if they clean out the ditch, pitch it the other way a little bit,
Mm.
and it'll kind of fix
Can we-
itself.
Can we
That's
just
pretty
sort
much
of
what Gary told them.
bring it up again and we get
Oh,
past,
yeah.
we have to stay on this because that is a problem there. And it
Yeah.
has been for going back when Jody Longnecker owned it,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we're going back,
Yeah.
and he claims that there's a spring. And maybe there is, maybe
Right,
that's
there
part
is,
of
but it
it.
needs to be resolved.
There's a lot of groundwater, and it just needs.
But the
to-
ice flow there is
Yeah.
unbelievable, especially
Yeah.
in wintertime and someone driving at night,
Yeah.
It really should be taken care of.
Clean it up.
Any public comment? Bill Terry.
Bill Terry, yes, a quick comment, and that is that walking my dog on Valley Cross Road today, I noted that the stop sign is missing at the corner of Valley Cross Road and Carter Notch Way.
Interesting.
It's just disappeared. And somebody left the bolt that was holding it.
Yeah.
So
on the
the
ground.
pole is there, but not the
Pole
sign?
is there, but the sign is now missing. I saw the bolt on the ground first, and it's a bolt sitting on the ground, looked kind of newish. And then I looked up and,
Oh, there's missing.
missing something.
Julie, do you
It's in
want
the
to,
dorm room
Betsy, do you want to
somewhere.
talk to Chief Hurley and let him know, and then Gary, and
And
make sure
because
those
it's a
things
state
there?
That's serious.
road,
Yeah,
as a state road, I know the state has the authority to decide to put a sign up. And if they do what the sign will say,
Valley Cross
Which
Road
is
is a
why-
Valley
state
Cross
road?
Road is a town road.
It's the stop sign.
Valley Cross Road is a town road.
right, it goes out onto the state road.
Yes.
And so, as I was saying, the state has the authority to decide if there will be a sign, and if so, what that sign will say, which is why you don't have a yield sign coming off of Wilson Road onto the state highway, which that was an issue at one point, because it's one of those stop signs that everybody rolls through because you
Right.
can see so far up the hill. And so people came to the meeting and said, why don't we get a yield sign there? Let's recognize that. And that's when we learned that signs going on to state roads are the state roads authority. That's within their right of way, and they are the decision-making body. That's not to say that that's where the sign needs to come from, but we should probably look into that. Gary may know. If he
Yeah.
doesn't,
Just letting
I'm
them
sure
know.
Jay
Yeah.
The
knows.
sign was
I wonder if it
always,
has to do with them starting to move the trees. Get rid of
Oh.
the
That could be.
trees
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
bridge.
At least
The
if we
northern
could,
signs are moved,
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
sight lines are there, terrible, and that's an accident waiting to
Yeah.
happen.
yeah, so if we could just
Within the next
con-
few hours.
contact Gary, like you said, he'll
Yeah,
know, just make Chief Pearlie aware, just so
Yeah.
he knows that it
Yes.
could be a hazard as well, and then hopefully
Well,
get
it's
that
on-
done. And just an update on the Valley Crossroad Bridge, as Julie mentioned, they're gonna do tree removal, they have to finish that by sometime in April because of the limitations on vegetation, et cetera. And the bridge is scheduled to be done, like Julie said earlier in the meeting, by mid-November this year. So fingers crossed that all goes well and according to the plan and safely and beautified and all of that. So it would be really nice to have that done. Keep me posted and let me know that the
If I
sign
see it
goes back
show
up.
Do they need to clear the area they want to cut before March 1st when the road is
No,
posted,
there's
or
a-
can they run heavy equipment?
I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know what equipment they're going to need for
Right.
tree removal and how big they are. But I know they've already ID'd the trees that
Yeah.
need to be removed and spoken
Those
to
will
the
require a crane.
owners.
I think
They
they're
will
bringing the.
they will require a crane,
They will. They're that large.
Trees, they're 100-year-old trees.
Yeah,
They're
So-
bringing the crane there and leaving it there before the,
before the road
Yeah.
closure, they're
That
supposed
makes
to.
sense.
yeah, so I wonder if they took down that stop sign
Yeah.
because they're gonna put the
Yeah,
crane
that's what
in
I'm
there.
wondering too.
But we'll find
But
out.
we'll find out and find out what's going to happen there. So, thanks for letting us know anyway. I appreciate that. All right, any other comment, public comment?
Were
Thank
we going
you.
to talk about that March 5th meeting?
Yes, we are not going to have a meeting on March 5th. We really don't have anything pressing at this time. That would be next Tuesday, so we're going to not have a meeting on the 5th. Our next gathering will be town meeting, election on the 12th, and town meeting deliberation on the 14th. And then the meeting following that will be March 26th. All right, so the next select board meeting is March 26th. Elections are at the Whitney Center from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's for the town elections, and then the town meeting deliberation, like I said, at Whitney Center, 7 p.m. on Thursday, March 14th. Stay hydrated.
It's fair.
Anything else?
no.
I will make a motion to adjourn. It is 4:58.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Welcome back, Julie.
Jungle Jewel.
Yeah.